would
Yes.
touch on.
Yeah. I do that. I mean, I'm a consultant, and that's what I do. Well, no, I mean, I have a home office, so I
Right.
just deduct. I do some math, and I do like the square footage of my home office, which is actually my dining room, and it's an office that has also office stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see clients there. I just do work there, healthcare writing. And then I just deduct that from my taxes, or I tell my person how many square feet and how much my rent is, and he figures it out, and
I
yeah.
do quite a bit of paperwork at home. I don't see clients. But I have a spare bedroom that I have a desk set up in, and it's kind of like a junk room, but I do sit in there and do paperwork.
So really the question is, based on what we were told yesterday, is can you clear it out quick enough so that if somebody came in, they'd say, oh, this is an office. And the answer is yes, yes, yes. So you're gonna get noticed. They're not just gonna like show up on your doorstep. And just know that you can have a dedicated space. You can have deductions taken from your rent or your mortgage based on having a space in your home. I don't know how it's specifically calculated, but there's a calculation for it. And then understand that really, like we said yesterday, keep track of all of your expenses, anything. And as you're really starting up, now's the time to really start into that. I'm going to hang on to this, even if you just hang on to receipts to start out with. And anything that you do that is related to your business, anything, any kind of training, any kind of resources, books. A lot of people don't deduct books, but books could be deductible too.
Clothing
I was in yoga club.
You got yoga clothing.
I don't know about
and
counseling,
business
but
clothing. Like, if I'm gonna
Not for business clothing. No, you can't really deduct for business clothing. I mean, you might check with an accountant, but they're clothes that I wear all the time anyway. So
for sure, yoga clothes I've been told you can.
right. So if it's specific to what you have to use. So if I had to have aprons for my art stuff, which I do, then that would be deductible. It's kind of clothing,
I
but
think maybe, I don't know, but if you're talking about maybe like I had to buy a business suit for interviews or something, that might be different. I'm
Well,
not sure.
look at it
I
this
don't know.
way. My life now has changed. I was in the corporate world for 10 years. Now I wear yoga clothes every day because I work from home and I do mostly yoga stuff. But when I have to go to a business meeting, like I'll have to go next week to Arizona to some corporate headquarters. I need a new suit because none of mine fit. Clothing expense. It's almost like the reversed, most people.
okay.
I don't know.
We'll edit this out, but so one of the things that if you go on a trip, like to a conference, the best thing that you can do is to take the per diem. So the government gives a per diem rate when you go on a trip. That way you don't have to save every little receipt, right? So
That's nice.
there's this, depending on what city you go to, and if you're already working for a university, they automatically do that. So there should be somebody who, or an organization that is state or federal government. There are already per diem rates that are accessible, but to take the per diem rather than, and so eat cheaply. So I go to conferences where breakfast is included. Well, if you take the per diem, you get essentially a little money for breakfast, some money for lunch, a little bit of money for dinner, and then some other things for parking or whatever it is based on the rate for that particular city. Most people don't spend that amount. So I was at a conference at one point and somebody said, every time I go out of town, I get my nails done. Because then I incorporate it into my per diem. That's what we need to add up.
Where do you find, the per diem number? What?
You can actually, it's actually online. You
It's
can go
like a
into
tax number.
the amount.
Yeah, would it be something from the conference, or I don't get where that number is coming from.
It comes by for the city. So if I go to Charlotte,
Yeah.
there's actually a hotel rate for Charlotte. There's the average amount that people would pay for lunch, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And so for a day, let's say I would get $150.
And that covers what?
That covers meals.
Per diem.
yeah, the per diem covers meals, it covers all kinds of things. So I just take the per diem per day. So does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Then
it's
hotel is separate, that's
Hotel
separate.
is separate.
Hotel is separate, yeah.
So it would be like a website, the city of Charlotte's website would have
Federal government.
Okay, so it is a tax
State or
purpose.
federal, yes,
Okay,
yes, so you look up
federal.
per diem for Charlotte, or, yeah, and it'll point you to whatever, website has the list of what the per diem is.
Is it-
do that?
Yeah, so so here's, I've got, I'm doing the packet for, and what I've asked, since, I'll write a note, went to a conference, can I just take the per diem for this city? It was in Charlotte, these are the dates, I left on this day, I came back on this day. Now, one of the things that is different with the per diem is that you can only take half, of the first day and half of the last day. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind too.
Does it vary by profession, or doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters. Yeah, sort of standard, yeah. So I think that's where we win, and if you're in an organization where you get reimbursed for expenses, instead of ask whoever is taking care of, how you get reimbursed, say, do I need to hang on to receipts, or can I just take the per diem? Okay. In business for yourself, you really have to pay attention to those kinds of things, because maybe you've had a certain amount that that you've got for travel or for conferences or whatever. So keep in mind too that any expense, association memberships, liability insurance, anything that's related to what you do. I would assume, start with, it could be, and keep track of it, instead of thinking, oh, I don't think this would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
always delete it, it's easier
you
to
can always
delete.
delete it, it's harder to go back and say, well, did I include this? Like, I would think about including anything and everything to start out with.
When I worked for my dad when I was younger, I used to think it was crazy that he was keeping receipts for stamps, for like $10 of stamps. Well, I add up, and now I understand why he was keeping it. Like, why would he need to document these stamps? That's why.
If you already have, like, if I was to get the business license now, and then I'm about to have to pay for this like $600 licensing exam and all this expensive licensure stuff, is that licensure process something that,
Oh, yes, that's $600, absolutely.
so
Whether you have
I
a
to
business
have
license or not.
Okay,
So even if at this point you're saying, I'm gonna be a sole proprietor and I'm gonna get started, you don't have to have delete. I don't think you have to have a business license to just get started. The business license is when you really are starting to actively see people. But regardless, that's a professional expense.
yeah,
So even if you don't have a business, it's still a professional expense and is deductible.
I know when I worked for someone else, I deducted
Yes.
my memberships, conferences, all that kind of, it just wasn't business setup, office supplies,
Mhm.
everything else, yeah.
okay.
So at some point, if you only recently finished with your school, potentially the expenses for your education are also deductible. There should have been some line on your,
Yeah,
okay, so same kind of thing.
okay.
Okay.
So I wanna move into insurance versus self-pay. So I guess I'll kind of start with, maybe we can tell how we came to take insurance and not take insurance.
Sure. You've heard a little bit about me already, so.
Well, the only thing that you said to me was that you did have an experience early on with taking insurance.
I did. So that's really,
It was a turn on.
it was. So this was in 2000, and I had rented an office within another office. It was an existing practice, and got on panels. So that takes a while. And I think Natalie will talk a little bit about that too. What really was a turnoff for me was insurance companies at that time, and I think things have probably changed a little bit, is it would take them 6 months to reimburse. So once I got on the panel, It would sometimes take 2, 3, 6 months to reimburse me for the work that I did. I don't know any other business that does business like that. So I don't, as a business practice, I think that's awful. Not only that, but if they go through they can go through your records at any time. And if they deem by your records that you didn't provide the kind of service that they would approve of or whatever else, they can take your money back. And it doesn't matter how long ago that was, within whatever time frame, they can take your money back. Again, I don't know any other business that does business like that. You might be able to think of a business that does business like that, but if I've done the work and it's good work, and I think it's good work, then maybe a contractor, if I've said, you didn't fix that wall the way that I wanted you to fix that wall, and they still don't do it, but that's out of a process. This is like, they can just take your money back. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. That feels like it's out. So that's a major reason. Those are major reasons that I chose not to, and still choose not to.
So I think paybacks can still happen like that. I don't know for sure. I think it's fairly rare in a private practice, and I mean, I know in an agency, I know that it would happen with Medicaid, but I think I'm, for right now, choosing not to take Medicaid, because of their very stringent requirements, but, I think for other insurance companies, it's rare. I mean, they will audit you, but also I think rarely, from what I've been hearing from other people who've been doing that longer than I have. I so far had no experience where they've asked to see any of my records, which I think is, I mean, they will at some point want to see stuff. But they've been pretty hands-off as of right now.
I just have a question about the Medicaid, and you may have another colleague that does this. Like if someone has a primary insurance and then a secondary for the copay for Medicaid, would you not take that because of the secondary?
I've never had it happen, and
Okay.
I honestly don't know how having the two insurances works. But
Do you take Medicare?
I can't take Medicare as an LPC, so no.
You can't.
LPCs can't take
Oh.
Medicare. I can take,
How crazy
so
is that?
maybe, is what you're asking about if they have something like Anthem Health Keepers that's a
That's a
Medicaid product?
Uh-huh.
So yes, I can take Anthem Health Keepers. And
Okay.
I don't know the names of the other ones.
I can't
There's
think of
three
it
of
right
them
now. I know what
that
you're
are
talking
Medicaid
about.
products.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I can take Health Keepers.
Okay.
Even, honestly, I don't know why that works,
Okay.
because
Because
I'm
I know
not
sometimes
credentialed
the Medicaid will take a copay away, but I don't know how exactly that would work with, some type of therapy. Or if you just say, well, I'm not gonna accept the Medicaid, but you would have to.
Here's how I think it works, but I'm not positive. I believe you submit it to Medicaid, get denied, then submit it to the other one. I think I've heard people say
I
that,
gotcha.
and I think it's
I
a
gotcha,
real
I understand.
process.
I understand, I've heard of that before.
Mhm.
So there's another issue, how much time is involved.
So I might, I mean, I do say when people call with Medicaid that I'm not taking Medicaid, so I might not even get into that.
Okay, I gotcha.
So my experience has been different. I decided I wasn't gonna take insurance, but I was so unhappy at my job that I wanted to fill up my practice fast. I thought insurance might help me do that, and it has. Most of my reimbursement comes within a couple weeks. The longest one I've had is one EAP that flat out says it takes 90 days, and they admit that that is ridiculous because even other insurance companies are much faster. So for the most part, I submit the claim and I get reimbursed in a couple weeks. And then there are the ones that are snags that get held up, and those are the ones that take the time. So I guess for me it was a decision of more paperwork and learning all this stuff, but being able to fill the practice. And as as a newer counselor, for me, it actually meant more money because the insurance reimbursement rate was more than what my fee was at that time. I've raised my fees, but it's more than most people are gonna pay out of pocket. But if you've been in practice for a long time and you have a specialty where you can get a high fee out of pocket, then it's gonna be less for you.
Can you talk about actual numbers?
So most insurances are reimbursing about 80 for an LPC. I'll be higher for a psychologist. LPC and LCSW are usually the same.
And it's by license, not degree. So Natalie with a master's degree in an LPC versus me with a doctorate in an LPC, it's the license that is the reimbursement.
And so I'm
So you would be reimbursed because you've got a psychology degree at a higher rate.
The $80 is for a 60-minute individual or family counseling session. Most of them do not reimburse you more for a family session. Intakes are usually a little more. I think the highest one is actually TRICARE, is $99 for an intake. So they may be going to not reimbursing for 60-minute sessions. They really are going towards a 45-minute session, which is a little less. I want to say maybe like 65, but for right now, everyone with TRICARE will reimburse me for a 60-minute session.
Okay.
TRICARE will only do 45 minutes at $63, which it's fine because I get a lot of referrals from TRICARE.
Yeah. So that's the like for example, your first example of the $80 from, is it TRICARE or something else?
I don't know, Optima or somebody. I'm kind of making that up. Healthkeepers is 70, I think, for an individual session.
So whatever their rate is, you see that when you become a provider that's accepted onto their provider list.
So you cannot jack up your rate. You have to say, my usual and customary rate is $100.
Okay.
And I submit that to them and they say, our maximum allowable is 80. So the client paid you a $40 copay and we'll send you $40.
Got it.
But you can't say my usual and customary is 60, but I'm charging you 80 because you have Optima.
Okay.
So it's better to have your own price higher than what the insurance will reimburse. That way you'll get the maximum of what they give.
Do you see how that starts to, how does that feel to you to make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah.
To me, so and yet, people do look at market research. So the market research says that the average that folks advertise for therapy is somewhere around anywhere from $90 to $125 an hour. So that's sort of reasonable and customary if you were to do market research.
Now, I can say my usual and customary is 100, but because you don't have insurance and have financial hardship, and I'm documenting that, I can give you a reduced rate, but you can't go
Like
the
a
other way.
sliding fee.
Right.
But if someone comes in and they don't know about any of that and they just like you as a therapist and they want to come see you, they go ahead and pay you the $100 without the insurance. Okay.
That's where having a specialty is key, because if they know you're the one for whatever this is,
Right,
and you're the
right.
best.
They'll pay you for it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I know other people who have just out-of-pocket practices. Lots of people are doing that successfully.
Less so around here, and it's interesting too that once you get into taking insurance, there is sort of this mindset similar to what you're going through of what do I do if it feels less secure to take just out of pocket. There is sort of this mindset that people go through, and people tell me all the time, I don't know how you did it. How do you not take insurance? Because people start getting into this. That's how it's been. That's how they know how to do things.
Before I was licensed though, I was seeing still quite a few people just out of pocket. I mean, I was intentionally only seeing maybe like 8 or 10 a week out of pocket at a lower fee then because I wasn't licensed, but I would just say I don't take insurance and this is my fee and it's around the average copay or whatever that was, and people were fine with it.
And so for me, the advantage of not taking insurance is I also don't have to worry about making sure that, I mean, I do for legality's sake, making sure that I cross my T's and dot my I's. That's about, you know, making sure that I'm covered and making, and at the same time, that allows me some freedom to use some techniques that aren't typically covered by insurance.
They're getting a little bit more open to mind-body things.
Excellent.
Like, I think most will cover things like mindfulness training
Yeah.
and relaxation. TRICARE will not cover guided imagery, which just kills me because is that evidence-based or just like evidence-supported for
I
trauma?
think it's evidence supported.
I mean,
So the only
you know,
thing that
it's
is
great for
considered
trauma.
evidence-based these days is CBT, which is ridiculous because it's not. It's not. I'm just saying.
I'm still taking that course.
Yeah, it kills me that the military insurance where there's so much trauma won't
Yes.
cover guided
Yes.
imagery.
Yes.
So manualized in like the military system.
It has to be.
Which is
So-
crazy.
It takes
Yeah,
a
so there's
while
some
for it
craziness.
to change. It takes them a while to change.
Yeah.
It really does.
Ironically, in the military, they're trying, because there's this acknowledgement that when troops are in theater, so when they're in active conflict areas, they are using guided imagery. They are
Yeah,
using
use it. Yeah.
yoga. They are using all these other things. It's just that when they come back, they can't keep using it.
They
I mean,
use
that's
yoga
like,
for trauma on the base
Yes.
here. I know
Right.
someone who does it, but I guess insurance is paying for it. But I mean, I have a trauma group where I use guided imagery and meditation and yoga, and insurance is covering it and framing it as body-based grounding and coping tools, which is what it is. I mean, I'm not lying, but I mean, that's what it
it's
is.
absolutely what it is. So it's then making sure that you find the right terminology to describe and support what it is that you're doing.
Are you gonna speak to out of network?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll start going through this and because I'm getting sidetracked. So these are the things that I just thought of off the top of my head, pros. So serving more clients. So I felt like I was losing a lot of clients who were calling and wanting to use their insurance. Now I can schedule most of them because I'm on most of the panels. It was easier for sure to fill my schedule. Possibility of making more money, like I said, for me at that time it was more money. Other managed care professionals are more likely to refer. So the first thing my primary care doctor asked me is, what insurance do you take? You might get some referrals from insurances directly. I get very few, but some where they say I looked on my insurance website and it came up.
Can I ask about the term self-pay, or wait, when we get there, I'll ask.
Self-pay or out of pocket, so not using insurance.
Right, so I get that.
Right.
But my question is, when you use the term self-pay, people don't always know what that is. And do you find that there are other terms that mean, I don't take insurance, that you use that people get? Like,
I think then what you're talking about is, so the vast majority of the people who use complementary and alternative therapies don't expect to be able to have to pay to use their insurance. They just don't expect it. So you can say my fees are, period.
yeah, okay, that's a good way of putting it.
I didn't use the term like self-pay on my website. for
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm
clients
getting
to
at.
see. It felt like a yucky way to describe it to clients, but just I don't accept insurance. And these
That's,
are-
yeah. Okay.
Okay, cons. So there's a lot more on this list. Okay, lengthy credentialing and contracting process, and I'm gonna go more into what the specifics are of that. For me, the average is about 4 to 6 months to get on an insurance panel. Medicaid, I mean, I did apply to get on their panel, and it's going on 9 months, and now I don't think I actually want to continue with that process, but, all the others were about 4 to 6 months. I did get, it's called a TRICARE certified provider or something like that. It took 2 weeks, I couldn't believe it. So I'm not fully credentialed with them, but I'm certified to take certain TRICARE plans.
How do you even start that?
I've got a slide that goes through all that.
Okay.
I know, how about that? How practical is that?
Yeah, because it's like a whole new world to learn. Okay, so other cons, more paperwork. It's true, there's more paperwork to do. Learning more, because all of this, I mean, I didn't know that much about even really how my own insurance worked. So I had to learn a lot about how the deductibles work, what is a cost share, and all of these kind of things. How all of the different plans are totally different. Still learning some of that. More time on phones with insurance companies. I don't spend a ton of time, but the ones that get messed up can take a while and can be a little frustrating. Managed care influencing clinical practice or number of sessions. So things like what they will and will not reimburse for, and capping the number of sessions. I believe they are required to cover 20. But some I'm seeing now have no limits on it. I don't know if that's the minority, but I've been seeing that lately. TRICARE will cap it at 8, and all you have to do is request 8 more, and they've said yes every time I've done it. So,
That sounds similar to, so I write healthcare proposals and I have to write about how all of this stuff works. I've been doing this for like, what, 15 years now, something like that? No, a little less than that. But, so I know it from the business side, but, so you're talking about session limits. So you just talked about 8 for TRICARE. And so what we always say in proposals, if this is how we're offering behavioral health sessions, we say for EAP, and I have another question about that, it's 8 sessions per issue. So like you can document that your person is coming to you for like marital stuff is their focus, relationship, and they get 8 sessions on relationship. And then you have to request that they get 8 more for, say, like depression.
Communication issues or.
Yeah, just it has to be 8, but it's usually per issue, and people overlook that.
So they maybe aren't making that so out in the open, because I didn't know that for EAP.
EAP, that's every single time. I worked for Value Options and did EAP through that, wrote proposals for them, and Magellan also, and some other companies. Anyway,
That's
so
good to know.
yeah,
Magellan
per
is
issue.
giving, is giving 8, but they I guess the assumption was per year, but so that's not.
You might even be able to Google it or something. I can help you if you. But
Yeah.
I'm also interested in the difference when you were talking about reimbursement rates for certain things. You did mention EAP, and I'm wondering what the EAP reimbursement rate is. Is it lower or okay? And then EAP is Employee Assistance Program.
So I'm on a few different EAPs. I started that when I started the insurance credentialing, because the process to get on board with an EAP is a lot faster and easier. You don't have to fill out this huge credentialing packet. So you can usually get on one of those in 30, 60 days. There's a real range, like CompPsych, it's $30 a session, which is really low. Like, I'm not sure I don't want to do that anymore. That's when I was very first starting, and they'll usually get like 5 sessions or something.
Well, but I think it's lower because EAP is usually offered to employees for free. They don't pay. You don't pay to have EAP. Your employer gives it to you as a side benefit, and so companies I think that they kind of bank on having low utilization rates, but they're showing like, hey, we offer a benefit of an EAP, and that's probably why their reimbursement rates are low, because people don't
And it would be a contract in with the insurance company based on utilization.
Yeah.
I think other ones have been, I would say a range of like 50 to 7. I would say 50 is the average for an EAP.
Okay.
And what I'm noticing is that there's a real range of how much they require of you. Like ComPsych, it's like one form and you submit the billing online, you do everything else the way you do it. Magellan, they have all their own stuff, like specific assessments you have to do, a lot of stuff they incline us to fill out. They have their own treatment plan, their own progress notes, which is fine. It's easy paperwork, but it's just different and something to remember. Some of them I think will be a little more involved. You know, ComPsych doesn't even want to see my treatment plan. Magellan wants
Still
to see all
thinking
my
I made a good decision.
If you, like, say you start off and you wanna get on some of these smart panels and see how it goes, if they start being too invasive or too, trying to influence your practice too much, is it difficult to get off the panel then? Does that become like do you commit to it for a certain period of time?
Not really. I mean, all the contracts are different. They usually will have some sort of specification, like giving 30 days notice. You can't just say, like, well, I'm just not going to take anymore because you're contracted to take it. But what you can do easily is kind of like freeze. I don't know the right term, but like freeze yourself. So say, I'm not taking any more right now, but I want to stay credentialed with you. So that's easy. I think you probably just have to make a phone call or send in a form and kind of think about if you want to stay with them.
So you can actually put in your agreement, I only want this amount of EAP such and such from Magellan or,
No, no. But look, if your EAP is going to be totally different and probably a lot easier to stop, I don't know the answer to that. I can look at my contract and see, but a regular insurance company, you're either taking clients for it or not. So you can't say I have like 5 Magellan slots because you're contracted to serve Magellan clients that call on you.
But if you don't have any slots, then what happens?
If you're full period, you can say I'm sorry, I'm not taking your clients.
okay, because that's what physicians do when they don't wanna take a lot of Medicaid patients or Medicare,
I'm not really
because
sure
they
how it would work.
pay the minimum to the
Yeah.
doctors. So the doctors stop taking Medicare patients after they get a certain amount. I know that
Yeah, I
much.
know, yeah.
So, or Medicaid.
Mhm.
So therefore, they get the other insurances in, that pay the top dollar.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that works. I know that people do that. I don't know if based on your contract you're supposed to do that. I mean, I know you can notify Medicaid and say, I'm not taking new Medicaid clients right now, like freeze me.
Okay.
Something that we write in proposals that we're like touting in the past maybe 5 or 7 years is, here's an example. So say Natalie is full and she can't take any more clients and she calls Magellan and she says, I'm not taking any new clients right now. Well, years ago, they didn't have for behavioral health people a place to put like take new clients or not, like turn this person on or not or off, like show them in the referral list or not. And now they've built in screens that show taking a new client, yes or no.
Yeah, Magellan gives you a profile, and I think
Yeah.
you may be able to control that yourself. How
That's even better. Yeah.
Magellan's really tech savvy.
Yeah.
Like they have the e-sign stuff.
That's good. Yeah, so that makes all the paperwork and stuff kind of easier. You don't have to make a phone call, you can do it yourself. So that when someone calls for help or looks online looking for you as a provider, it'll show, oh, they're not taking new clients right now. And you don't have to take those calls, you can just be available when you are. I guess there would be value in talking to someone even if you weren't taking clients, saying like in the future. But, I don't know, I think that's the part.
I can look into these things though. I can kind of review my contracts and see what I can find about how to, because a lot of people do, they go on and then they decide I'm not going to do it anymore. Like there's one blogger that has a whole series about breaking up with managed care. So
There's a book that we read, at ODU in the Masters in Counseling program, Breaking Free of Managed Care, I think is the title.
If anyone wants to look at it, her name is Julie Hanks, and it's Private Practice Toolbox, and I bet it answers these kind of questions. Breaking up with managed care. Yeah. As the other con, and the reason a lot of people decide to break up with insurance companies is because you max out. They tell you what your max fee is gonna be, so you can't decide, I'm gonna raise my fees now. I mean, you can request to raise your fee, but
You can, but.
they don't often, you can call them and ask if you can raise your fee, but they may or may not do it.
Who else does that? Who else, that's restraint of trade. Like, that would be illegal in other areas, but here we've got, I'll just,
I'm not saying I'm gonna do it forever, I'm saying for right now.
So yeah, I think you're right about filling your practice. So there was a lot of filling out paperwork in order to make that happen, but here you are, not even a year into your practice, and you're full. It took me, did you hear, yesterday I said, it took me a couple of years to really kind of fill up. So yeah, there are some advantages to it. You just have to, it's like, understand what the advantages and the disadvantages are when you go into it.
It sounds like there's kind of this overarching theme of being new and trying to establish a clientele. How much are you willing to bend as a new person to get going versus someone who's established and has a name for themselves and can actually be clear that, you know, this is my fee and then, you know, you work from there. And that's what I'm grappling with now, like friends, you know, for my services, do I give friends a discount? How much of a discount? Do I not charge them at all? So it's a real, I'm sure that's different for you all because of the nature of your work, but it just, again, that overarching theme of where's the give and take, where's that line as a new person establishing a clientele?
Right, so some of this, as far as fees, was my comfort level was saying my fee is $100 an hour. I was not ready to say that.
Right.
But as an established person with a really strong specialty, maybe one day I'll be there and can, you know, not do insurance anymore. Okay, so that's why I have possibility of making less money depending on where you are. Audits and paybacks, we already talked about. Delayed or denied claims, so far what I've seen is it's, you know, it's this small percentages of that this is happening. Most of them are going through okay, but it's the small percentage that takes the larger amount of work to just straighten out. So, are there more general kind of questions? And then I'll talk about getting on panels if you want to. So, these are the things you need before you start getting on panels. Your tax ID, I don't know why I have EIN and tax, those are the same. Tax ID number, your license number, a physical address that's not your home. So, this is a kind of like a sticking point for people because it's like, I have to get my office before I'm on panels and can start taking people. And so you do, they really frown on using your home address.
And it can't be a P.O. box.
It can't be a P.O. box, but I think I heard, isn't there something where you can get a physical that's not a P.O. box at the post office or something?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure, but.
So maybe that speaks to that physical address, that sharing office space to start out with as a way of cost saving, but also to meet that requirement.
Right, and you can be seeing out-of-pocket clients at any time.
What if the place you're seeing clients is your home?
Insurance is probably not gonna do it. So that's, yeah. I know someone who's doing that, but.
Yeah, people do that.
Jody Morris has
Really?
been for, I
No,
thought
she
she
has
was
taken insurance.
taking insurance, so.
Maybe it's a business name plus the address. you know, it'll have a different tax ID under a business name than it will as your name.
It's possible that the person didn't identify it as their home, but I wouldn't really say, I wouldn't recommend, you know, I would say be honest about that.
And then you also have to look at about boundaries
Right.
when it comes to having a business in your home.
Okay, need your business name, so your CAQH, and I don't remember what that stands for, but it's like a master application. So the idea was that you would fill out this one application and allow all the insurance companies to request it, and you wouldn't have to fill out 10 applications, but that's not really how they're doing it. They still make you fill out their application and they verify it against your CAQH. It could have been easier, but they didn't do it that way. Okay.
So you don't have to have a CAQH
You
number?
do.
You do,
Yeah.
okay.
You do, it just doesn't save you any work the way
Okay.
it's intended to. Okay, so you have to get all of that first. And then you start requesting applications. So some companies you can do this online, there's always a Become a Provider, and it'll either be apply here for us to send you your application, or call us to get the application. And you'll have to fill out most of that information for them to see, like, do you make this first cut, basically. And also if they're accepting new providers in your area. I never ran into that where they weren't. So request all of those because that can take a while. That can take a few weeks for them to send you the application. Complete your CAQH profile, which takes a while and you have to do it in one sitting. So allow yourself a couple of hours. You can look at it first to get an idea of what's involved in that.
So you can't save it, go away, come back. Okay.
I can't believe that, but no.
Yeah.
You can update it later though.
Mm.
You can update it anytime you want to. So then you will get your credentialing packets from them eventually. You might have to follow up with them. So you complete those, which is mainly just repeating all of that information that I said that what you need first. It's like filling the same stuff out on a million different forms. And then that's when you wait. And then once they have credentialed you, so that means that you meet our requirements, then they will send you a contract. And that's when you're kind of locked in under contract with them. So you sign that and send it back, and then you're done. So you have to be both credentialed and contracted with them. So it's actually 3 different, basically, applications.
And they probably do re-credentialing every 2 to 3 years. I had to write that like 70 million times in proposals. But I don't know what that means in terms of what you've gotta do as a provider to refill out, or it's probably way easy. The re-credentialing is like just updating.
I don't know for sure, but possibly that's when they might tap into your CAQH profile.
Yeah, from what I heard from other providers, that once you get to the recrediting part, that's where they use that, and it's easy. It takes like 5 minutes compared to the
The
initial
initial.
stuff.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And CAQH will email you, I think it's every 90 days, and you have to attest that what's in there is still accurate.
Do you pay? Is the CAQH thing something you
It's
pay
free.
for?
And you upload your insurance. Oh, that's what I forgot. You have to have liability insurance.
Proof of
Proof
liability.
of liability, and it's to a certain amount. It's
1
it's like 1 million and 3 million, but what are the different,
million and 5 million.
Per incident versus overall.
right? But whatever the minimum was that I had covered it for everybody. So you upload all those forms, I think you upload your, diploma and everything to CAQH. Any questions about that? I know it's a lot.
How do you keep track of like, I'm imagining a spreadsheet or like a Word document table where you have like, you know, all the company names, you know, 1 through 7, like, that you're on the panels for, and there's like a website link for each one, and just in case, or how do you keep track of that?
So I need to make a system for that. I have all of the contracts, in folders. When I was in the process of it, I had Post-its on it saying when I contacted them and how long they said and who I was supposed to contact. I mean, it worked fine. A spreadsheet would have been better. What I want now is a spreadsheet with everyone I'm contracted with, and they all have like a provider portal, and I need to have all of those in one place with like my username and password, so that, because most of them you can verify the benefits on that provider portal. So that's what I need to have in a better system. And maybe even who will cover 60 minutes or 45 minutes, or who will cover couples and who don't.
You just keep adding columns to your spreadsheet to tell you.
I have a little cheat sheet for TRICARE that's like prime and standard, active and retired, because those are the different percentages for the copay. That took me a while to figure out.
Pioneer.
I think this may be everything I have. Oh, out of network, okay. So out of network basically means you are not credentialed or contracted or affiliated in any way with the insurance company, but you are a licensed provider and you would meet all of their criteria. And so your client comes to you and they pay your full fee, which can be your usual and customary, and you give them it's called a super bill that they submit to the insurance company, and then if they have out of network benefits, they may get a percentage of it back. People have called it the not so super bill because sometimes it doesn't work that well.
You were gonna make a copy of that, so we'll have that available.